Tēnā koutou te whānau o Auckland Unitarians. Tēnā koutou nā manaheri. No mai, higher mai. Higher mai ki tēnei whare karakia a te atua. Tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Welcome, welcome, welcome to all who have chosen to gather in this space made sacred by Auckland Unitarians for how many years? You know, every Sunday for almost a year, I've told you it's 116. It's really going to freak you out on in December when we go to 117. Welcome to this opportunity to be together in community, which is a time of joy, comfort, and sometimes challenges. This is a place of sanctuary where we come to learn more about being human. We're not here because we've figured out life's questions or because we think we got it right. We come here to learn more about being in relationship together, how to listen, how to forgive, how to be vulnerable, and how to create trust and compassion in one another. We especially welcome you today if you had the courage to come in through those doors for the first time. We hope you find the experience enriching. Just so you know, let me explain that the service doesn't end until you've shared a cuppa with us at morning tea. It's our sacrament of hospitality, and it won't be complete without you. Now let us move into worship, willing to be authentic with each other, honest within ourselves, and open to connection in all its forms. This Sunday, we're focusing on patriarchy. And my opening words are by the theologian Bell Hooks. Visionary feminism is a wise and loving politics. It is rooted in the love of male and female being, refusing to privilege one over the other. The soul of feminist politics is the commitment to ending patriarchal domination of women and men, girls and boys. Love cannot exist in any relationship that is based on domination and coercion. Males cannot love themselves in patriarchal culture if their very self-definition relies on submission to patriarchal rules. When men embrace feminist thinking and practice, which emphasizes the value of mutual growth and self-actualization in all relationships, their emotional well-being will be enhanced. A genuine feminist politics always brings us from bondage to freedom, from lovelessness to loving. Every endeavor begins with the first step and encounters darkness and difficulty along the way. We know the darkness of ignorance, of fear, and of oppression. Yet we know the dawning of the light, the beginnings of hope, and the renewal of life. Blessed be the source of light and of life that inspires us to take that first step. A friend asked me this week what I was preaching on. And when I told him it was Dismantling Patriarchy, he gave me an empathetic chuckle and said, well, good luck with that. I'm not sure what he meant by that. Easy peasy. It's only been around for the last 11,700 years of the Earth's history. Lots has changed since it took hold during the Neolithic Age, sometimes called the New Stone Age. The Bronze Age had not even happened yet. What had happened is that the previous nomadic hunting gathering age, where men and women worked together as a unit for the families and tribe's survival, had been replaced by growing crops and raising livestock, which meant living in villages. It raised the issue of ownership for the first time. Who owned the land the crops grew on? Who owned the goats and cattle that grazed on it? That led to further questions. Men were slowly becoming aware that they had some mysterious role to play in the conception of a child. But having failed their intro to biology class, they assumed that their semen was like a seed planted in empty soil. Like the barley, wheat, and goats, the child was theirs. Like the soil, a woman's only value was in being fertile. And like the fields, the man owned the woman. And as we all know, ownership gives power. While our understanding of the birds and the bees is now more informed about the mutuality of conception, we still refer to a woman as being fertile. Each time we do, we reinforce new Stone Age thinking and the flowering of patriarchy. Patriarchy was furthered at the end of the Neolithic Age when women began to be traded as commodities. This was seen in arranged marriages between families or villages. Women being used to have sex with visitors, a deed of hospitality. Not quite the same as our sacrament of hospitality. By a deed of hospitality by tribal chiefs, and the ritual rapes during festivals to ensure prosperity. Women were treated as commodities, and from a young age became accustomed to this identification. Women's value lay in their reproduction, especially in farming villages. In these villages, more people were needed to work the land and sustain the population. So women were expected to produce a large amount of offspring. Children became an economic asset. And if women were unable to produce them, they were seen as all but worthless. The idea of a woman being good only for their wombs has clearly progressed even in today's society. All of the major religions would submit this Neolithic understanding of the relationship between men and women into their cultures. All of them. The story of Adam and Eve is as good an example as any. The story portrays a woman as not worthy of full maleness. Only man is in the image of God. Eve is only a dangerous helpmate. Dangerous because she tempts man to fall from that image. By the time the Ephesians read Paul's letter to them, admonishing women to be subject in everything to their husbands as the head of the household, it was old news. To them, this was the natural order. It had always been thus. No one can remember back 9,000 years to the Pleistocene age when things had been different. The only thing new in Paul's letter was that it had been ordained by God. Even their pagan Greek neighbors had understood this for at least 300 years. Aristotle, tutor to Alexander the Great, had portrayed women as morally, intellectually, and physically inferior to men, claimed that women's role in society was to reproduce and to serve men in the household, and saw male domination of women as natural and virtuous. Not having the benefit of our knowledge of human biology, Aristotle believed that women had colder blood than men. The sex which prevented women from evolving into men. The sex that Aristotle believed to be perfect and superior. He believed that any imperfection that is caused in the world must be caused by a woman, because one cannot acquire an imperfection from perfection, which he perceived as male. Aristotle had a hierarchical ruling structure in his theories. Through this patriarchal belief system passed down generation to generation, people have been conditioned to believe that men are superior to women. These symbols are benchmarks which children learn about when they grow up. And the cycle of patriarchy continues to the present day. When Thomas Aquinas introduced Aristotelian thought into the theology of the Catholic Church, misogyny became an acceptable part of patriarchy. You can't have imperfect beings in positions of power in a holy institution. Protestantism did not change this view, and if anything, reinforced it with the primacy it gave the Bible as the Word of God, holding up the many passages that supported patriarchal beliefs. I'm beginning to understand my friend's chuckle about dismantling patriarchy. Such an understanding is akin to tilting at windmills. I'm beginning to think dismantling patriarchy in one sermon is perhaps overreaching. Patriarchy is so entrenched in our culture. It is part of the landscape. So much so, many don't even know the word. Yet it has been challenged for generations, and many Unitarian Universalists have been among those who have taken up their lance to tilt against it. I merely wish to continue that resistance, for it will take many more generations and sermons to create the culture shift necessary to discount it as the natural order and acknowledge its destructive effects. One of the difficulties is there are multiple understandings of patriarchy offered. The one I prefer is by Bell Hooks, an African-American feminist theologian. Patriarchy is a political social system that insists that males are inherently dominating, superior to everything and everyone, deemed weak, especially females, and endowed with the right to dominate and rule over the weak and to maintain that dominance through various forms of psychological terrorism and violence. By this definition, patriarchy not only oppresses women, but people of color, those who are queer, and the poor. Her approach appeals to me because she is not anti-men, but anti-patriarchy. She asserts that patriarchy has no gender. In her paper, Understanding Patriarchy, she observes patriarchy is the single most life-threatening social disease assaulting the male body. Yet most men never think about patriarchy, what it means, how it is created and sustained. The word patriarchy just is not a part of their normal everyday thought or speech. Men who have heard and know the word usually associate it with women's liberation, with feminism, and therefore dismiss it as irrelevant to their own experience. Perhaps the first step to dismantling patriarchy is for men to become aware of the social political structures that shape and inform male identity and sense of self from birth to death. Might help if they also learned how to spell it. Belle tells of growing up in a working class home where both her parents embraced their church's teaching about patriarchy. Those teachings were reinforced by every institution they encountered: schools, clubs, courthouses, sporting arenas, the media, TV, and movies. They naturally taught her brother and her how to fit into this natural order. She writes, as their daughter, I was taught that it was my role to serve, to be weak, to be free from the burden of thinking, to caretake and nurture others. My brother was taught that it was his role to be served, to provide, to be strong, to think, strategize, and plan, and to refuse to caretake or nurture others. I was taught that it was not proper for a female to be violent, that it was unnatural. My brother was taught that his value would be determined by his will to do violence, albeit in appropriate settings. He was taught that for a boy, enjoying violence was a good thing, again, albeit in appropriate settings. He was taught that boys should not express feelings. I was taught that girls could and should express feelings, or at least some of them. When I responded with rage at being denied a toy, I was taught as a girl in a patriarchal household that rage was not an appropriate feminine feeling, that it should not only be expressed, but be eradicated. When my brother responded with rage at being denied a toy, he was taught as a boy in a patriarchal household that his ability to express rage was good, but that he had to learn the best setting to unleash his hostility. It was not good for him to use his rage to oppose the wishes of his parents, but later when he grew up, he was taught that rage was permitted and that allowing rage to provoke him to violence would help him protect home and nation. While this is what they were taught by their parents' actions, Belle and her brother suffered some confusion about gender. In reality, Belle was stronger and more violent than her brother, which they learned quickly was bad. And he was a gentle, peaceful boy, which they learned was really bad. Although they were often confused, they knew one fact for certain: they could not be and act the way they wanted to, doing what they felt like. It was clear to them that their behavior had to follow a predetermined gendered script. She tells a disturbing story of what happened when that script was not followed. As a little girl, she liked to play marbles with her brother. When her father was at work, her mother had no problem with them playing marbles together. Yet Dad, looking at our play from a patriarchal perspective, was disturbed by what he saw. His daughter, aggressive and competitive, was a better player than his son. His son was passive. The boy did not really seem to care who won and was willing to give over marbles on demand. Dad decided that this play had to end, that both my brother and I needed to learn a lesson about appropriate gender roles. One evening, my brother was given permission by Dad to bring out the tin of marbles. I announced my desire to play and was told by my brother that girls did not play with marbles, that it was a boys' game. This made no sense to my 4 or 5-year-old mind, and I insisted on my right to play by picking up marbles and shooting them. Dad intervened to tell me to stop. I did not listen. His voice grew louder and louder. Then suddenly he snatched me up, broke a board from our screen door, and began to beat me with it, telling me, "You're just a little girl. When I tell you to do something, I mean for you to do it." He beat me and he beat me, wanting me to acknowledge that I understood what I had done. His rage, his violence, captured everyone's attention. Our family sat spellbound, wrapped before the pornography of patriarchal violence. After this beating, I was banished, forced to stay alone in the dark. Mama came into the bedroom to soothe the pain, telling me in her soft southern voice, "I tried to warn you. You need to accept that you are just a little girl, and girls can't do what boys do." In service to patriarchy, her task was to reinforce that Dad had done the right thing by putting me in my place, by restoring the natural order. I found this story helpful in understanding some of the dynamics of the recent Kavanaugh hearings. Clearly, everyone played according to their gendered scripts. Dr. Ford testified in the quiet, polite, and respectful manner prescribed for women. The old white male Republican senators felt no shame in ignoring the validity of her claims, which was their right being the superior beings. Judge Kavanaugh exhibited self-righteous rage at even being accused and possibly denied that which was his privileged due by a daughter of Eve. Patriarchy was under attack and had to be beaten back forcefully. He was heroically defending the natural order. The women who protested his nomination were described as a vicious mob out to destroy his life. All this I understood, but what flummoxed me was the significant number of women who reviled Dr. Ford and defended Judge Kavanaugh, at least until I read Bill's story. She's right. Patriarchy has no gender. It is a social political system that oppresses both men and women. Dismantling it will liberate both genders, but not until both men and women recognize it is not the natural order, but a human creation. That begins with becoming aware of how it controls our beliefs, thoughts, actions, and choices. If we can at least do that, maybe our great-great-great-grandchildren will leave the new Stone Age behind for a better place. But don't despair. Yes, the cultural shift we seek will take a long time to achieve. But we can take heart that our forebears have successfully countered some of the fruits of patriarchy. Many women have now achieved suffrage, the right to own property, to serve as elected leaders, the right to divorce, the normalizing of inclusive language and parental leave. There are fewer child marriages, lower numbers of teen pregnancies in the UK, Australia, and New Zealand, and many more girls have access to education, for example. They inspired us to reduce epidemic levels of violence against women and children, increase the number of women in political office and the upper echelons of business, alter the justice system's poor treatment of women who suffer sexual assault and harassment, and to bring it into gender pay inequality, to name but a few. They are windmills we can defeat now, women and men together. Amen. We'll get comfortable for a moment. No hokey pokey this week. And I offer this quote by Rennie Eddo-Lodge as your meditation. The mess we are living in is a deliberate one. If it was created by people, it can be dismantled by people. And it can be rebuilt in a way that serves all, rather than a selfish, hoarding few. My closing words are by Andrea Hawkins Cameron. Blessed are we who gather with open hearts together in this space today. Blessed are we, the chalice lighters of resistance, justice, love, and faith. Blessed are we, the heretics, the outcasts, the walkers of our own way. Blessed are we, the border crossers, the refugees, the immigrants, the poor, the wanderers who are not lost. Blessed are we, the transgressors, the trespassers, the passers-by, the cause takers, the defiant, the compliant. Blessed are we, the hand extenders, the sign makers, the protesters, the protectors. Blessed are we, the trans women, the trans men, the non-binary, the cisgender, the multigender, the no gender. Blessed are we, the friend, the stranger, the lonely, the hidden, the visible, the authentic. Blessed are we who rise in solidarity. Blessed are we who cannot. Blessed are we who do not. Blessed are we, for this is our beloved community, and this is who we are.